Welcome to The Forum, your modern-day coffee house, where ideas can be birthed, exchanged, and wrestled with. We celebrate questions, conversation, and reason as powerful tools to enlighten hearts and transform minds, shaping a new generation of thinkers, innovators, and pioneers. We're glad you're here, so pull up a chair and let's begin.
Married at first sight. Our wedding anniversary, my birthday, and a kitten. These are four things that have recently got me thinking about our theme for today, which is the meaning of love. What is the meaning of love? Now, like many of you, Amy and I have been watching Married at First Sight. Any hands? Anybody been watching? I know a few of you have. Okay, I see those hands. For those of you who are unfamiliar or now shaking your head in disgust, Married at First Sight is a TV show in which couples are paired by relationship experts and marry at first sight. The show then follows their relationships after marriage to see if they develop into love. And it struck me that for many of the individuals in the show, the overriding meaning of love was defined by how they felt. And their decision to stay together or leave was determined by their feelings. First question of the day. Are feelings and emotions where we find the meaning of love? At the end of May, it was 17 years since Amy and I were married. And we watched the video of a song that I sang as Amy walked down the aisle. And the lyrics are quite interesting. Love is a choice, and I choose to make it. Love is a promise, and I'm not going to break it. Second question of the day is the meaning of love found in commitment, a choice, a decision, and an unbroken promise, in spite of the ups and downs of feelings and emotions. Now, I noticed a real contrast between my upbringing and my background and the meaning of love that I observed in this TV program that I was watching. And it made me question, well, has the meaning of love changed over time? Is it evolving? Or is there actually an objective meaning of love that we need to find, and maybe we may have lost or moved away from? Last week, it was my birthday, and my parents sent me a card, which is nice. I don't know how you feel about cards. I'm kind of maybe a little ambivalent. I'm like, it's really nice that someone's got me a card, but it doesn't make me feel loved, especially. But when I answered a knock at the door, and I thought it was the Amazon delivery driver, and it actually turned out to be my parents, who had got on a train, come 250 miles to surprise me, that meant something more. I felt loved in a way that I didn't by just getting a card. So, what does it take to show you that you're loved or make you feel loved? Is the meaning of love a subjective experience that differs for each of us? And at the weekend, we welcomed a new member into the family. This is Penelope. Now, it's been fascinating to observe the range of responses to a kitten. Obviously, Amy is besotted. And funnily enough, the kitten won me over pretty quickly too. The two other cats in our house had varied reactions. One looked at me and said, "This means I'm a big brother now." Immediately adopted that role. The other one looked at me and said, "Do you realize what you've done?" It made me think, how much do chemicals that are going on in each of us, animal instincts, play a role in what we're feeling and how we're acting when it comes to love? Is love actually something that we decide and we choose, or is it something that happens to us and within us on a chemical level? So when you say you love something, whether that's a cup of coffee or whether that's a person, what do you actually mean by that? What does it mean when someone says, "I love you"? Love you. This morning, we're going to explore the meaning of love. We'll chart the meaning of love and how it's changed over time. We are going to ask whether there is an objective meaning of love, look at one in particular, and maybe dissect it a little bit. And we'll dip into the subjectivity of love and how we each have a personal language of love. So, right now, I want you to take 60 seconds, just 60 seconds. On your tables, you have A4 sheets that say love on them. I want you to just get down on that page everything that love means to you. You've only got 60 seconds, so just get your thoughts down. This is going to be our starting point, beginning now. Now, there are some colouring pens on the table. There are pens. If you want to be taking notes on this sheet, it is yours. You can do with it as you wish. But let's go back in history, back in time, and have a little look at how maybe the meaning of love has evolved. We're going to go back to ancient Greece, 800 BC. Now, think for a moment about the different people that you love. Partners, husbands, wives, kids, grandkids, parents, grandparents, your friends, your cat, your dog, yourself. We love all sorts of people and things, but we don't love them all in the same way. And the Greeks gave us distinct words for these different types of love. The first is Philia. Now, Philia is the love for a friend. And the philosopher Aristotle called this virtue friendship. He taught that it included mutual respect, shared values, deep understanding of each other's character, and genuinely caring for their well-being. Aristotle thought of philia as mutual flourishing through shared excellence. I like that. That sounds like a good kind of friendship. And considered this the greatest form of love. So for Aristotle, philia was the ultimate kind of love. Now, what did Whitney Houston say was the greatest love of all? Everyone's going through it. Loving yourself. So she was talking about philautia. Now, philautia is loving yourself. Aristotle said about this, a person should be their own best friend, and therefore ought to love themselves best. He didn't think you could love someone else unless you were really loving yourself first. Okay, now what do we call that kind of love that gives us butterflies in our stomach? Well, the ancient Greeks called it Eros. Oh, yeah. Okay, that'll do, Charlie. Nice work. So, Eros is about desire or attraction. Now, the philosopher Plato and his student Aristotle had very different understandings of what Eros was. For Aristotle, it was a very practical thing. It was about finding your other half, creating partnership, building a family. It was biological and it was social. But for Plato, it had a much deeper meaning. He thought Eros was about attraction, not just to somebody else's body, but to physical beauty in itself. And then that would lead us upwards through this almost philosophical quest. And he called it the ladder of love. He would say that this attraction from the love of a body would lead to the love of all beautiful bodies, to the love of beautiful souls, to the love of knowledge, and ultimately to the love of the form, and that word is important, of beauty itself. Now, I'm going to very briefly dip into this idea of the forms, and it's an important concept. The forms are Plato's theory that perfect, eternal templates of everything, that could be the template of justice, the perfect form of beauty, the perfect form of goodness, could be the perfect form of a chair, or the perfect form of a square or a circle. The perfect form of anything existed and does exist in a separate realm. And that our imperfect world is a reflection of these absolute truths. Plato believed that before we were born, we existed in this place where these forms were. Like before we were in our bodies, before we were born, we existed in this place of perfect forms. So when I look at a chair, the reason I know it's a chair is because something in me subconsciously remembers this form of a chair from this realm before. Now, Aristotle would have shaken his head and been like, I have no idea what you're talking about. It's a chair because we sit on it. But Plato had this idea that was to a certain extent, it was mystical, but more objective. He was like, no, there is this perfect idea of what a chair is, and so that's how we know what it is. So he would say the perfect idea of love exists in this other realm. And the reason I recognize love and I know what is love and what isn't love is because actually there's something in me that I remember this core idea. Now, those of us that have might grown up in a religious context might say, well, that's the idea that God is love and we all came from that. So the reason we recognize love in somewhere is because that's kind of part of us, if that makes sense. If it does, then I've achieved at least something today. Okay. Plato would say we recognize something as love because it was there before we were born. Okay, let's have a look at another form of love. Storge. Storge is natural affection. If you have kids, it's that feeling you have towards your kids. If you have parents, it's that feeling you have towards your parents. It's that kind of familial kind of love. Now, I want to move on to one other form of love that I think is quite a significant one, and this is agape. Agape. It's that idea of an unconditional form of love. Now, this is a contentious one, and I think this is going to provoke some conversation today. It's often associated with a divine form of love, and the concept of agape raises a big question. Is there any form of love that is truly selfless? Is that what love is? Does pure altruism exist, or do we always get something from what we give? Whether that be satisfaction, whether that be a sense of our own goodness, or maybe the approval of other people for having been loving. And is it still love when we get something back? Okay, so question for all of you. Is there anyone for whom you'd happily give up everything? It may be your child, it may be your partner. You think, I would do anything for them. Meatloaf said, I would do anything for love, but I wouldn't do that. Is there someone that you would die for? That's a huge question. And what does that mean about the meaning of love? See, Jesus disagreed with Whitney Houston. Jesus said, the greatest love of all is to lay down your life for a friend. I wonder who you agree with. Do you agree with Whitney Houston, or would you side with Jesus on that debate? So for some of you, the idea of love being about giving things up is really going to resonate with you. You'll think, yeah, that's what love is. And for others of you, it will feel like the opposite of love. You may be an ethical egoist. Now, this is a new word I learned this week. An ethical egoist states that we should want something from every relationship. And that love isn't just charity, it's a transactional thing. I love you because I value what I get from you. I value you, and I expect things from you, and I am willing to trade something from my side, whether that be generosity, kindness, honesty, respect, in exchange for something back from you. And I'm not going to invest my energies unless they're reciprocated. So is that an important element of the meaning of love? I think that kind of reminds us about that philotia. It's the idea of loving yourself. There's this tension within love, because we know we give something in relationships, but some of us have suffered because maybe we gave too much and we didn't love ourselves in that process. So love actually got corrupted with this idea of what we've talked about here before, self-sacrifice. And we ended up harming ourselves. Is that what love means? Now, other words that I'm not going to go into too much is Xenia, which is the hospitality we show to guests. Ludos, which is probably what we'd call flirting, is kind of a playful form of love. And Pragma, the practical, rational type of love, where the head guides the heart. So these concepts for love shaped much of our current understanding, I think. But I wonder whether we see love as one-dimensional. We see it as one thing, because we only really have the one word. I love you, I love my cat, I love this morning, I love that football team, I love my wife, my kid, whereas there are all these different forms of love. So I think that's where it's important to consider what each mean. Perhaps seeing that there are different types of love will show us that love means different things with different people and in different contexts. Now, I've gone into quite a lot of detail on ancient Greece, and I'm going to briefly fly over history up to the present day. So hold on to your hats. Because the meaning of love evolved significantly as time went on. In the Roman Empire, from the 1st to the 5th centuries, the Roman Empire was a really ordered society, and love was very much characterized by duty and social order. Is love a duty? Is it about keeping things in order? Or does it mean more to that? The Middle Ages was a 1,000-year period where, after the fall of the Roman Empire, the Roman Catholic Church emerged as the dominant authority across most of Western Europe. And so the Catholic Church, along with what we call the feudal system, created this rigid, kind of social, established order. Peasants were expected to show reverence to lords. Lords were expected to show reverence to kings, and they were all expected to submit to the church. So it was a very religious society, and love was an ordered thing. So rather than it being mutual affection or a personal connection, Love was a duty, love was obedience, love meant acceptance of one's station within that social pyramid. Okay, I learned something else this week. I learned about the Renaissance. Now, from the 15th and 16th century was a period called the Renaissance. Now, Renaissance literally means rebirth. What was it that was reborn? Well, there was a re-emergence of the content from ancient Greece, because that had kind of been rubbished off and taken away in the Middle Ages, but through someone invading another country over in east of Europe, it meant that all these Greek ideas suddenly proliferated Europe again, and Greek ideas had a renaissance. So, are you familiar with the phrase Platonic love? When we say Platonic love, it's a friendship not based on a physical attraction. Now, while that phrase has its origin in Plato, Platonic love, its present-day meaning really came from the Renaissance. Beginning in the 14th century, so Europe saw this rebirth, where the ancient Greek philosophies about love became increasingly popular. It was all occurring, though, within the context of a very Christian world from the Middle Ages. So they kind of re-understood Plato's ideas through a Christian context. So Plato's idea of Eros love, remember that whole idea about climbing the ladder from this kind of sexual attraction, but that growing to this kind of quest for higher knowledge, that became re-understood through a very kind of moralistic Christian world. So it was interpreted to be an inspiration for moral and intellectual growth in a very non-sexual, what we now call Platonic way. Okay, so we have the Renaissance era, and now we're going to step into the Enlightenment very briefly. There was an Enlightenment era, and that was followed by a Romantic era. In the Enlightenment era, love shifted to being founded on individual choice. So rather than being told what to do by the church or by the government or by the king, it was about your individual choice. And reason became a big part of relationships. In the Romantic era, romance suddenly became the primary basis for relationships, which is what you find a lot in movies, TV shows, and our modern idea of relationships is about romance. The idea of personal compatibility became a concept, and this ideal love match, or what we often call finding the one, was born. Now, this raises a fascinating question. Is there this one person out there for anybody? Or could you, on the other extreme, learn to love anybody? Are two people actually compatible? Does being uncompatible with someone even exist? Or is it just that you have to figure out how to love them? I find it a really interesting question. We were chatting about this just now. We have areas in the world where there are arranged marriages, and I know people within an arranged marriage, and they have a loving relationship that you would say love exists within that arranged marriage. Could you love anybody? Or actually, are there certain people that you are more compatible with, and why? I'm throwing out questions for us to discuss today. Okay, final one. We're going to step into the modern era. In the 20th and 21st centuries, equality and individual rights have increased. Traditional values are no longer an obligation, and there is an increasingly free and individualized expression in the meaning of love in the world today. Now, one phrase that I thought was a fascinating one, we've just had Pride Week recently, and one phrase within Pride is love, which celebrates that all expressions of love are equally valid. But it's an interesting phrase, isn't it? Like, what does that really mean, love is love? Because it doesn't really help us answer the question, what is love, when you just say love is love? Now, scientific inquiry has delved into love's neurochemical and psychological underpinnings, exploring concepts like attachment theory to understand its biological and developmental roots. Now, psychology raises questions like, does the meaning of love lie in my experience from childhood, how my parents treated me, what happened and what I experienced as a kid? Has that shaped what love means to me now? Are my feelings, attractions, and choices of how I love a consequence of hormones and chemicals that I'm at the mercy of? Or is love a choice that I choose to make in spite of what's going on in my body and brain? So that's a brief look at 3,000 years of history. But what about the future of love? Here's an interesting one. Is there meaning in loving a virtual person? Ooh. Because this is the reality nowadays of how the world is developing and technology is advancing. Some people have virtual partners. Can that hold meaning? Can I be loved and feel loved by an artificially intelligent admirer? I think it's time for some conversation. Thank you very much for listening so far. So here's some questions to have a look at for 10 minutes. Describe a moment when you felt truly loved. What made that meaningful? Try and put your finger on what it was. Is there a true form of love that we're gradually discovering, like Plato's form, or this objective idea of love? Or is the meaning of love still evolving, and we're part of evolving that meaning? Is it defined by our experience of it, or are we discovering this idea of love? And the last one, what role do both feelings and commitment play in love? Is love about emotions and how you feel, or is love about making a choice? Where do they meet? So I'll give you 10 minutes to have a chat through those. Thanks. Okay, let's move on to our next section. In this section, I want to have a little look at, does love have an objective meaning? It seems to me that when someone sincerely says, I love you, that really means something to people. And it means something because they're holding an idea of what love is. It's interesting, in this Married at First Sight, it highlights this because obviously people get married, but then in the engagement, in the time after that, you will get this moment where one person says to the other person, I love you, and that's this massive sensational moment in the program. They said, I love you. Why does that mean something? Like, they've been married and sleeping together for weeks, and now the fact that they've said, I love you, suddenly this has incredible meaning. Why does it? What does that actually mean that was different from before? Who here has been to a wedding and heard this popular reading? Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. So this is found in a letter to the Corinthians, going back thousands of years, so it's from a certain point in time. But it gives an objective definition of what love is. Now, I think a lot of our traditional Western values that we have grown up in this culture are defined by these words on the screen. So I want us to consider them this morning. Is this something that you still hold to? Or do you feel like, actually, this is something that was of its time, but we need to move away from it now? Maybe we need to redefine what love is. Does love have an eternal anchor that we can know and experience as a reference point for how we love others? Or is love something that we are creating as we go? Now, I'm going to read these out to you, and I want you to observe your own reaction to them as I read them. See which of them make you go, oh, yes, that really resonates. See which of them makes you go, no, I don't think so. Because that's going to be an interesting thing this morning. Let's have a look. Love is patient. Interesting that it starts with that one. Love is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not boast. Love is not proud. That's a very interesting one, especially in reference to what we've talked recently about the idea of pride that's very much celebrated in society now. Are there two meanings to pride? Something worth talking about. Love does not dishonor others. I think it says love is not rude. Love is not self-seeking. Just going to pause a moment there. Love is not self-seeking. I think for many of us that is the big one within this. Is that what love is? Is it love defined by an attitude that says the agape love? Whether I get anything back or not, I'm going to keep giving, because the definition of love is not about what I get. It's not about self-seeking. Or is that something you think, if I was editing this, I might take that out because maybe that's unhelpful. Maybe, like Whitney Houston said, learning to love yourself might mean having a little bit of flexibility on the idea that love is not self-seeking. Something to discuss. Love is not easily angered. Is anger part of love? It doesn't say love doesn't get angry. It says love is not easily angered. I wonder what this guy meant when he wrote that. Love keeps no record of wrongs. How much of our decision to love someone or not is determined by what they've done before. How many times have you said, you always do this? Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. Love always protects. Always has got introduced here. Love always trusts. Oh, yeah, we go. Love always hopes. Love always perseveres. Love never fails. Now, I'm very conscious that for many of us, we have relationships that have been great, but maybe now aren't relationships anymore. Did love never exist there? Is it love if it ends? Was it love at the time, but then we decided not to love? It's interesting. This is one guy's definition of what love is. It's been very influential, which is why I want to discuss it. So, which of these do you value? Which of these do you resonate with and recognize as virtues that you aspire to? Are there any that you see as problematic, untrue, or even harmful? And I think this is an interesting question. If someone loved you in the way described here, would that feel like love? Or would you feel like there's something missing? So, we're going to discuss. Do you subscribe to the meaning of love proposed by the writer of 1 Corinthians 13? If not, why not? And if not, I want to give you a job on your tables. Edit this. Create a more accurate, healthy, and helpful version and complete the phrase, love is. That is your mission, should you choose to accept it, for the next 10 minutes. Okay, let's step into part 3. I want to look at subjective love. Rather than defining what love is, let's consider, how does love feel to you? Now, hold on to your seats because I'm about to express my love to all of you this morning. ¿Cómo te amo? Te amo contra las maneras. Te amo hasta la hondura, la anchura y la altura que mi alma puede alcanzar cuando fuera de vista aspira al fin del ser la gracia ideal. Te amo al nivel de cada día en la necesidad callada al sol a la luz de una vela. Do you know what I mean? Okay, I just showed you how much I love you. I read Elizabeth Barrett Browning's Sonnet 43 to you. Why does that not mean anything to you? Why are you looking at me so blankly now? So unless I'm speaking your language, you're not going to receive the message that I'm sending. Did any of that make sense, by the way, Ruth? Yeah, good. Top marks. Now, in 1992, an American relationship counselor called Dr. Gary Chapman published The 5 Love Languages, in which he defined 5 common ways that we give and receive love. And he wrote about how it's important to communicate in the love language that the object of your love understands. So, let's have a look at these 5 love languages. Words of affirmation. This is expressing love through spoken or written compliments, encouragement, and appreciation. Does that mean anything to you? Is that the one that you're like, yes? If someone just says, Steve, you're amazing. That's the one that really means something. For some of you, you're thinking, it's just words, doesn't mean anything. What about acts of service? Showing love by doing helpful things, turning up for someone. It's chores, it's errands, it's doing something to ease this person's burdens. Does that feel like love for you? It might be somebody putting the bins out. It might be your kids laying the table. Is that like, yes, that feels like love when they turn up for me like that. For some of you, you're thinking, well, yeah, but it's useful, but it doesn't really mean anything, doesn't make me feel loved. What about receiving gifts? There's a few people who've said to me, like, my husband bought me this thing that it doesn't really mean anything to me, or my friend gave that to me, but like, I don't know why they wasted the money, really. Like, the gifts don't really do anything for me. But some of you will be like, they bought me flowers, they bought me a watch, they bought me chocolates. That really meant something because I was given something that cost them something. Part of that is giving thoughtful gifts. It might be the fact that them giving you that gift showed you that they knew you in a certain way. So that was what the meaning felt. But that might be your love languages, receiving gifts. Number 4, quality time. Who feels loved when somebody gives up time to really listen to them, spend time with them, understand them? Undivided attention. Attention, I think, is a form of currency. It's a way of showing value. Some would say it's the highest form of value is when you really give your attention. And the last one, physical touch. Expressing affection through hugs, kisses, holding hands, or other physical closeness. For some of you, I'm going to be honest, for me, physical touch is like my number one love language. Now, I also grew up in a family where we were like a really huggy family. Like, your family's normal until you get to know another family, isn't it? Like I'll go to my mum and dad's house or my family there. I'll literally walk past my sister, like, in the kitchen, and I'll give her a hug, and I'll sit next to my brother on the sofa, and I'll give him a cuddle. And like that was normal to me growing up. So then when someone gives me a hug, it's like, that's what love means. But I've married someone who a hug doesn't really mean much to Amy. She's like, are you giving me a hug or are you wanting a hug? Like, it's fine. Like, I'll give you a hug, but like it doesn't mean anything to her. For Amy to feel loved, it takes quality time, really sitting, listening, having a conversation about something. Now, here's the problem, often in relationships. If I just go around trying to show everybody that they're loved by giving them a hug, for some people that's like, get out of my space. Like, that's the opposite of love. Now, in my heart, I might be wanting to show them a form of love, but if I'm not giving it in their language, then actually it's not going to feel like love to them. So, which of these means the most to you? And which of these means the most to those that you are loving in your life? Are you speaking their language? Or are you just trying to show them love in your language? Because sometimes we say, like, well, you should know that I love you because I do this. But unless we're showing love in the language that they understand, it's not going to feel like love. And I think this, again, raises that question of compatibility. Are two people sometimes feeling like just not compatible with that person because neither of them understand how the other person needs to show up in order to feel loved? Actually, would we feel like we could overcome that idea of compatibility if we could just understand each other better? Okay, the last thing I want to say on this is showing love in a language that is not your own can kind of feel like it takes a lot more effort because it kind of feels natural to do it in your language. But actually learning another language takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort. It doesn't come naturally. You have to kind of consciously decide to think about it or create a new habit of it. But if you want to show that other person love, then that's going to take maybe a conscious, intentional decision. Okay, let's have a little bit of discussion and maybe also a little bit of a challenge. On your tables in the little wooden boxes, you have the 5 love languages. So your exercise now is to put them in order. Put them in order of which ones are the most important to you and have a discussion around your table. Who has which as their most important love languages? Consider as well, what are the love languages of the people that you love? Do you know? Maybe you don't know. Maybe that's a conversation to have this week. And last bit on this. Has Dr. Gary Chapman missed one off the list? Is there a love language that you think, well, he didn't say that? Like, that's my love language, and that's not on the list. Okay, so what time are we on now? Do you know what? Let's take 10 minutes to this, and then I'll wrap up. Well, it seems like that's created some great conversation. And hopefully that will help a bit this week and create more conversation with those that you love. If you don't know what people's love language are, it's going to be hard for you to speak it in their language. So consider that with the people you're interacting with this week. Like, what is it that I need to do to show up? What was really interesting as we chatted around on our table was that, and I don't know if this was the same on your table, it's funny how often we pair up in relationships with people who have very different love languages to us. Does it mean more when someone shows up for you in a language that is not their own? Is the idea of compatibility then something that is an interesting one? If somebody isn't showing you love in your language because it's not their language, it's very easy to assume, well, we're just not compatible. How much would that conversation to say, just to remind you, in case you've forgotten, my love language is this. And to remind yourself what their love language is, it really helps to actually turn up and create some of the feelings that are necessary. I don't know what you added to your list of love languages or of what you thought love is. One thing that came up on our table when we were looking at the previous thing about love is patient, love is kind, was that love is authentic. I wonder whether that's something that is maybe more of a modern value than it was a traditional value. What role does being honest and authentic play in your relationships? How honest should you be with your partner, your parents, your kids? Sometimes, does love mean being honest and authentic? Does love mean moderating your honesty and authenticity? And on the love language one, was there anything that did anyone add a love language on? Sacrifice, interesting. Another one I thought of is space. For some people, is space their love language? They're like, just give me space. Another thing that came up on our table was, what does it mean to love yourself in the idea of these love languages? My sister decided that she didn't really enjoy cleaning the house, but she did enjoy playing the piano. So she loved herself by hiring a cleaner. And by hiring a cleaner in the week, that was her way to actually give herself some quality time so that she could sit and play the piano or go for a run or something like that. Sometimes maybe that's part of loving ourselves. Consider that this week. Now, the purpose of the forum is not to tell you what to think, but to invite you to think. And I think we can see that love is a complicated thing, it's multifaceted, it means different things to different people. But I think it's worth thinking this week, what does it mean to you when you say, I love you? What does that feel like to you in your love language? And how do we define that nowadays? How do you hold to that? Is love an emotion? Is it a choice? Is it a commitment and a promise? Is it chemical? Is it psychological? Is it spiritual? Is it transactional? Is it selfish? Or is it selfless? Is it divine? Is it natural? I think we can see that our understanding has evolved over time. And I think for each of us, let's consider what that means this week. So wherever these thoughts, conversations, and conclusions take you, I hope that they will empower you to love yourself better, more authentically, and to love each other better and more authentically. Thank you for listening, and have a lovely week.